Thank you so much for joining us on Straight Outta Savannah. I am super, super, super excited to have my guest Lilith Wildwood here. She is going to tell you all about who she is and what it is that she can do for you. So, Lilith, take it away.
Well, where do I start?
Begin.
The beginning. Okay. Yeah, how did I get here? How did I get to where I am? Is that what you
Tell the people,
mentioned?
tell the people who you are.
Okay, well, I'm Lilith. I didn't start off as Lilith, but I am Lilith now. I my journey started when I was about a year old.
Oh, wow.
Maybe it started before then, but I don't remember that. But I certainly remember the journey from when I was a year old. And I what I remember is I was lying on my mum's bed and suddenly everything started expanding. Every cell in my body separated from every other cell in my body.
Mm.
All the innards of all the cells separated out, and I became pure vibration and felt deep love, deep connection, felt totally safe, totally loved, not like human love, but bigger, more expansive, um, like a consciousness that's connected to everything.
Mm. So you
Yeah,
did
so
that at one.
yeah, I was a year old. Yeah, and the
Oh.
reason I know that is because of the house that I was living in. We moved to a different house after that. And I can remember the room inside, and, the color of the wallpaper and things like that. So I know for sure that I was less than a year old. Um, Skip to now, kind of a few years ago, I went to a conference and they were talking about near-death experiences. And what they were describing was really similar to what I experienced when I was little. And I hadn't thought about it as a near-death experience. I just thought of it as a some kind of spiritual awakening or something. Um, and they did say that it can happen to children, and you don't have to have a near-death. You don't have to stop breathing or something like that. But something clicked a few weeks ago. I remember my mum telling me that I swallowed a nappy pin. So in those days, we used to have terry nappies and they were held together with nappy pins. Like they were, this big. And
Yeah, I think we
I
probably
remember
talked
her,
about
yeah.
it.
And I, I
Clothespins,
remember,
not clothespins, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah, like safety pins.
Yes, yes, that's it.
Yeah. And so I remember what she said was I was on the bed and she left the room to get something, wipes or whatever. And when she came back in, I'd put the nappy pin in my mouth and I was blue. And she like got me all, tapped me on the back and things like that, and it came out. So I'm recently, only in the past few weeks, I've just connected those two things. And so it could well have been a near-death
So that was your
experience.
near-death experience for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So that it was really interesting how those bits of information came to me. But anyway, that's how it all started. Ever since then, I've had expansive experiences. Sometimes people have near-death experiences, when they're older, and they always kind of come back and they want to change the world. They want to share their experience with everyone. They write books about it and things like that. But and it changes their life, turns their life completely upside down, and they have completely different focus after that. But this happened to me when I was one. And so I've had
Really?
that focus ever since. So, so yeah, my focus has been ever since then to try and make sense of the experience, but also to help other people connect with it as well. Um, so in my kind of, I think what it did was it opened something in me. So from that point, and it may have been like that before because also I'm autistic, so I'm very kind of have a, I'm sensitive to sound and vision and everything like that, and those
Yes.
kind of energies. So probably also sensitive to the extra
I
energies.
call it sensitive to the world around you.
Yeah, yeah, and the world's extra to the physical world as well.
Yes, yes, yes.
So that's my situation as well. So I was autistic before I was one, but it may be that that also triggered um, an unmasking of that, whereas maybe other children would kind of try and shut that down a bit more.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, so there I was in this expansive consciousness at 1 years old, two, three, four, and continuing like that. Um, I
So,
wanted to make sense of the experience. I had what they called an imaginary friend, but actually,
it
you know,
is.
she taught me so much. Wasn't imaginary at all. Um, and so I would go out to the woods and she would teach me everything about magic and witchcraft and healing and even things about extra to this planet
But you had a,
stuff.
I think they, I feel like that is called a primal guide.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like,
I didn't have that name at the time, but
no,
yeah,
no,
that
of course
makes
not.
so much sense.
Mhm.
She made sense of my metaphysical worlds that the my parents didn't make sense of. Nobody around, they just thought I was strange.
Yes,
And
yes.
so I kind of grew up with that, looking for kind of reflections in the real world of what could explain it. Or I had a comic called Misty Comic. I don't know if you remember that, but it was a comic for girls, and it was all about mystical things like mind reading and telekinesis and
I
things like that.
don't. It probably
And
was.
I would just like, oh, every time it came out, I was like there reading it because it was so, it's the only thing in my world that reflected my reality. And so, yeah, that happened. I then read everything I could read. I read a book called Supernature by Lyle Watson, I think. And I read that when I was 12. And it's like a full-on metaphysical biology book.
Just imagine.
Yeah. And so yeah, I was just obsessed with this. It became my lifelong obsession.
That's amazing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like listening. I'm like, dang, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So just everything, all my experience with magical, you know. Um,
What did your
didn't
parents think about that?
well, they thought I was weird. My mum had a friend who was a medium, and so my mum brought the friend to come and see me. And uh, she said, I looked out the letterbox in the door and she could see this blue light coming out of my eyes. Um, and she kind of reassured my mum that it was okay. And yes, I am a bit weird, but I'm just connecting with the unseen world and things like that. So my mum felt a bit better about it after talking to her friend. Um, yeah, and it just carried. I didn't do well in school because I didn't fit in. Obviously, who are these human creatures that don't understand me?
Yes,
So then there was
I
the
get that.
autism and the energy stuff at the same time. But I
Yes.
think it's really common for autistic people to have this connection anyway.
I was gonna say that. I was actually going to mention
Yeah,
that. I was like, it just seems like that is the case when I talk to people and I look around
yeah,
and I see people and I'm like, so many of us do have those other characteristics. And I believe
yeah.
I almost think I almost feel like it's almost like a prerequisite, really. Because
Well,
it's like it
yeah,
opens you up, you know.
yeah, absolutely it does. what I've found, I've worked with thousands of women, witches, people who are into healing and tarot and things like that. I've worked, I'm also a psychotherapist, so I've worked with um, neurodivergent people. That's my specialism now. And I'm not saying that all autistics are witches, but what I am saying is I reckon 99% of witches are autistic.
But I wanted to say it.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Just alluding to that is like, yeah.
yeah. And by witches, I mean anyone who works with energy, reads tarot, does
Magic.
healing. Yeah, anything like that.
Wait. And then also there's a what is the other people? Midwives. Of course,
Hmm.
of course they're witches too.
Yeah, midwives, healers. Yeah, anyone who's doing that kind of work where they're working with different dimensions of consciousness.
Yeah.
So yeah. So yeah, everyone, I've been running groups for 30 years, and I would say 99.9% of the people in my groups, my witchy groups, are autistic. And yeah, we have these extra sensory experiences. So it makes sense that we're drawn to something like witchcraft and magic because there's answers there, very real, concrete answers, because those energies are real. And just because science can't measure it yet doesn't make them, non-existent. They're
Right.
real. We can't see sound, but we all know that's real. So why not, these other energies? Anyway.
But if you
So
think about it, that's real.
yeah,
It's real all the way
yeah,
around. It's like you can't see energy, but you know it exists.
absolutely.
You know it can't be created or destroyed, so you
Yeah,
know it exists.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And they have done studies. They've done scientific studies, but the most scientists just aren't interested in the metaphysical. Um,
Not
there
until
was,
they need to be. Because
pardon?
I said not until they need to be. Because
Yeah.
when you start seeing doctors that are coming out saying all they want to do is just sell drugs.
Hmm.
They just want to make money. They don't really,
Yeah.
about the people aspect and even
Mm.
the healing aspect, really.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah. Well,
healing, is not, it doesn't bring as much money.
yeah. And yeah, the money for funding is in the pharmaceutical industry mostly, or, in space travel or weaponry,
Which,
those kind of
why would you
things.
want to do space travel when you can't get the shit right down here?
I know, right?
I mean, yeah, I said
Hmm.
it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
want to go up to space and mess up Mars because
Hmm.
you're messing up,
Yeah.
here, all the global warming and all the things that are happening, that
Mm.
shouldn't be happening because, you people are greedy and you want to destroy the earth, but then you want to go up to space and try to destroy it as well.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
make it make
Yeah.
sense.
So yeah, so I started running groups. I picked up my first book on magic, I think, when I was about 13, started meditating when I was 12, and started experimenting with doing spells and
Now,
things.
did you have any type of guidance with this? That was my question too. Like, was there
Not
anybody that you could
apart from Mrs. Grimble, my imaginary friend, who wasn't
oh,
imaginary.
this is Grimble.
Yeah. My child brain gave her like a little witch-like appearance. She was my height and,
Well,
she
that's
lived under
what
a
they tell
rock.
people to do. I mean,
Mm,
that's how they teach.
yeah.
In a lot of courses and stuff, they're like, okay, assign it, give it a name. Like when people are trying to get their call those people your spirit guides. They're like, we'll give it a name.
Yeah.
When you do the meditation to meet your spirit
Yeah.
guides and all that.
Yeah.
They're like, well,
Yeah.
give it a name. What's the first name that comes to you?
Mhm.
Like I have some that are called Rebecca and Jacob, just because
Yeah.
the girl that was doing
Yeah.
the thing, she was like Rebecca and Jacob. I said, okay, so I got Rebecca.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting that we are taught, when we start taking classes, of course, not school, but we're taught to give these entities names, and to give them characteristics and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think it's amazing that you did that all on your own.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, it just happened the way it happened. I didn't know what I was doing. It was only as I got older, I was studying Kabbalah, I was studying um, what they call high magic. I don't like that word, but um, I was studying esotericism, ancient mysticism, all by the age of like 15, 16.
Yeah, like you're
Um,
you're an old soul. Like
well,
you've been
whatever,
here
yeah.
many, many, many times before. This is not even
Yeah.
the first
Yeah, maybe.
incarnation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've obviously done lots of past life work and, seen loads of my lives, some really interesting experiences, and a future life actually was one of them that I experienced. But yeah, it's just I mean, compared to normal everyday things and people, it's been really like another world, my life. Just really bizarre experiences and the future telling me things and you know like for example when I was 18 I was in a car accident, but the weeks leading up to it I nearly died about 4 times with various things. Like I got salmonella, I nearly fell off the side of a cliff in a car, and what was the other thing? Oh, I got washed away by a river, had to be rescued.
Oh,
So
wow.
this energy was just building and building and building, and then I had this car accident. I was like, oh, that's what was happening. And on the day of the car accident, I saw a center page spread of somebody walking away from a car accident. Like, in a newspaper, it was fully open. Somebody walking away from a car accident. It was a color photo, or the whole newspaper, and they had blood all down their face. And I kind of reeled away from it. It was so shocking. And then a couple of hours later, that was me. So it's like, and just my life is filled with these bizarre experiences that, I understand now, why and what was going on. It's just the ripples from the future. And it was such a big event that it was loud, you know.
Does make you, yeah,
Yeah.
that's just,
Yeah, yeah. And
so,
then I was at uni, so I did all my own studies, and then when I was at uni, I found some of the first people I found who were also witches, and we just worked together really intensely, like doing magical workings and journeys together and having insane experiences, like
oh, that
amazing,
sounds so
amazing.
nice.
Yeah,
So
like
you
it was
found
full
some
on.
community.
Yeah, once a week, every week, 3 hours of practice, going on journeys, and just what we experienced was just amazing. But yeah, we were doing Kabbalah journeys and stuff. And then I just carried on from there. Once that kind of group, we left uni and we all went our separate ways, and I just carried on running groups from that point. Um, yeah, so then that got me to here, which is running groups still online. I've got about 30 people in my group at the moment, and at the moment, we're doing sacred shapes. We're meditating on shapes and the numbers associated with those shapes. So it might sound like a nothing, but it's so, so powerful because these sacred shapes are the building blocks of the universe and ourselves. So it's really incredible what happens. And then we're going to move on to the magical manifestation, 5 weeks full on powerful ritual to manifest something. But I do it kind of once a year. And I'm also teaching witchy women how to build businesses. as well, because I realized that my mission is to help witchy women be seen and get be their big, knowledgeable, powerful selves in the world, but also in business as well, and to be paid for their work and acknowledged for, the wisdom that they've got and they're sharing with people, or the healing they're giving people. So many of us give it away for free and end up depleted and
Yes, we do. And we get
yeah,
burned.
yeah.
You don't
And
even want to do this work. I've been there. It's like I
yeah,
don't want to do this work. I mean, my God, it's like I can give it away for free and people will pick it up and run with it. But then
yeah,
when when you want to charge, people are looking at you crazy and saying stupid stuff like,
mm.
well, Jesus didn't charge. And you're like, no, because he was taken care of. He didn't have
He
to.
was, yeah, he had however,
People
12,
knew he
13
needed to
people to
eat.
look after him and feed him and
Right. I was
yeah.
like, people knew,
Mm,
that people needed to eat, that were healers or whatever.
mm,
I said, and
mm.
so they took care of them. I said, that's why they in charge. I said, these
Yeah.
days, no, I give you a good word. You don't want to give me nothing.
And also, it was pretty much a bartering system in those days. So they were given food in exchange or gifts in exchange.
Or
But
grooming or housing or whatever,
yeah, but
and
the thing,
that's the thing.
yeah,
But
yeah,
they didn't do it for free,
you know,
and that's what I had to tell
yeah,
somebody that I said, no, no,
yeah,
see, no.
yeah,
I said, now, you know, you, and it's all a value based on what you decide. Like
mm,
I personally, I do sessions. I don't charge a whole lot, but I charge something,
yeah,
you
good.
know? And it's
Yeah,
like, no, you have to have an energy exchange.
yeah. There's so much against us charging. First of all, there's misogyny. We are seen as less worthy of being paid as women. Second, the witch burning times where we were pretty much wiped out um, in the 13th to 15th century or whatever. And what's that left us with? What that message that we're left with is don't be seen, you're bad, you're wrong. And even if we try really hard to ignore what culture and society is telling us, we've internalized it.
Yes,
So, and then we're going, oh, well, I shouldn't charge really.
because
And
it's
then there's a whole,
conditioned.
yeah. And then there's a whole thing about, oh, it's not right to charge for spiritual services, but
Yes.
just bullshit.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Because like priests, they get their houses and their food given to
Everything. They
them.
don't have to worry about it.
No, and look
I'll
how
take
much
it
money the
care of.
Catholic Church has got. And, you know, they're one of the richest organizations in the world.
Yes. And they're a
And we're,
nonprofit.
yeah. Yeah. So yes, we should be paid.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And it's one of those
Mm,
things where, like for me, I felt like I love this work. I do.
mm,
However, I would like to be paid for
hmm
it.
hmm
I'm like,
And absolutely,
this
yeah,
is,
you
and
should.
that was the thing. And so I had
Yeah,
gotten to a place where I was burning out and I
yeah,
felt it because, I was being pulled from my career. And but I was like, you know what? Something has to give.
hmm
Because I mean, I enjoy doing this work, but I mean, I can't continue to do it for free.
hmm
I was
hmm
like, no, no.
yeah. And that's why I started this business course. I only teach witches or healers or readers how to build their businesses because we speak a different language, and also
Yes,
I there's rituals involved in the process and a bit of
yes,
magic and meditation and visualizations that other people might not get or might not be interested in. But yeah, specifically, I work with witches because we have a huge need to be held through this process and get over these blocks to being seen and being paid and feeling that our gifts or our skills are worth. being paid.
Yes.
So yeah, that's why I started it, because so many people are in exactly the same situation,
Yes.
giving and giving and giving and giving for free,
Yeah.
and they burn out, or they're
Yeah.
doing a
After a while, you do. Even if you're,
yeah.
and it's not even always about whether you need the money or not. You know what I mean? It's not
Hmm.
always even about that. It's about,
Yeah. Why shouldn't witches be
your
rich?
value. Right.
Yeah.
So why shouldn't?
Yeah.
If you're going to come to me and you need guidance and you want me to help guide you and show you and teach you and all these things, meditate with you, hold your hand, hold space,
Mm.
I should have some money for that.
Absolutely.
And for
Absolutely.
me, I went through this thing where, and it was something to realize, but I went through this thing where I was afraid to show my power. I was afraid to be seen for the power
Yeah.
that I possess. And that was something that I had to come to. Like I started studying, I was like, what is really happening?
Mm.
And I started realizing, and I was like, okay, okay, okay. It's almost like what is that thing they say? Dimming your light.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, okay, yeah, no, well, I'm okay.
Mm.
When you're powerful as fuck.
Yeah.
You know your words, that the things that you create, your
Mm.
rituals and all these things, are powerful.
Yeah.
But you dim them,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And when you work with people, I know those are people that you work with.
Yeah.
What's a way that you help them to understand that they're doing that, number one? Because I think most of the time, I know for me, I didn't realize
Mm.
until I
Yeah.
did.
Yeah. Well, what I, what I find when when they first come to me, they're first drawn to me because they see, oh, witchy business. Is that even possible? And then what I find is that they're in a job that they don't like, and they're trying to do it on the side, or they're, you know, they get, like we said, they're giving the stuff away for free and just feeling depleted. Um, and that's where everybody tends to start who's on my business course. Um, and the first 2 or 3 sessions is all about uh, shining, clearing those blocks, starting to see just how valuable their skills and knowledge is. And that can take, it's a 3 month process, but it can take almost the 3 months to get to that point where they go, oh, this is who I am. How amazing, these skills that I've got, I can step into them, I can be seen. But it takes that whole process sometimes for them to get to that point, uncovering, uncovering, uncovering until they finally stand up and go, oh, this is my unique speciality. This is what I'm going to stand up and say that I am.
That's awesome.
Um, yeah. And alongside the magic and that self-discovery, we've got the nuts and bolts of building a business, So, what do we do in Facebook? What do we call ourselves? Have I got a website? What's my branding? So we're doing all that alongside the magic as well. So
Yes.
yeah, it's a business course plus magic.
That is so powerful because, we need that. Because I don't
Yeah,
know about you,
absolutely.
but
Hmm.
I didn't have anybody for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I had to feel my way into building a business. I did take some business courses, I think about 4 or 5, that some of them lasted a year, some of them less than a year, but really, really helpful, good business courses. And but I always felt a bit alienated because that it wasn't quite addressed, the difference, the energy side of it.
Right.
And so I was doing the nuts and bolts, but knew there was something extra, something more that needed to be added for it to be a whole process for me. So I've kind of built that because I want other people in the position I was for it to be just perfect for them, you know?
And it is just because
Mm,
you did it.
yeah,
Because the thing
yeah,
is, you think about it, it's like, you know, that's kind of what I've created. Same thing. I was
mm,
like, I created this community,
yeah,
and it I created it because it was what I would have wanted to have.
yeah,
Like I would
yeah,
have wanted to have that, when I was, for lack of better words, growing up.
mm,
It's
mm,
like if I could have just had, community people that were, on the same
yeah,
path and
mm,
just, coming together so that you could even ask simple questions. Because, sometimes we don't even want to ask simple questions because, you think, oh, that's stupid. They're going to think I'm stupid. You know what I mean?
mm,
So yeah,
yeah,
that's powerful.
yeah.
So we're going to land this plane. I want you to share one more thing with the audience that you want them to know. And then I'm going to ask you a question that I ask every single person.
Okay, cool. The thing that I would say to everyone is you are valuable. Your gifts, your skills, your talents, your knowledge, your wisdom is valuable. And you deserve to be seen. You deserve to step out into your true power, to claim it. And you deserve to be paid for this powerful, life-changing work that you do. That's what I would say.
That is so powerful. That is so powerful. And that's so real
Hmm.
because so many people, you talk to them, I've talked to them, we hear them all the time. You know,
Yeah.
they say dumb stuff like, like, oh, I don't charge for my spiritual work. And you're like, what?
Hmm. Yeah.
Nothing?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
I went to a fair where I was at a metaphysical fair where this young lady was charging $5 for a reading. And everybody else in there was so angry with her. But the wild thing was she wasn't even really getting a lot of people to come in and get
No,
the readings.
no, because if you're not about valuing yourself, how can other people be expected to value you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're almost like, wait, what? But
Mm.
we did it's like funny because everybody was looking at her like, is she really serious? Did she miss the one in front of the five? At least,
Mm.
because
Mm.
it's a fair. So, at the fairs, they don't charge really that much.
No.
But we had a young lady that was doing a fair where I live, and it's almost like she was trying to get everybody to charge like $20 for a reading. And some people were like, no, no,
Yeah.
no,
Mm.
and it caused some um contention, maybe that's the word, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, because you're like, wait, no, because if you don't set a value. And this is what we said. We were like, everybody's gonna come in expecting everybody to give $5 readings, and we're not doing that.
Hmm.
Not even for a fair.
Yeah.
Like,
Good.
no,
Yeah.
that's not what we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And collectively, we need to raise that status of the work that we're doing.
Yes,
So, yeah.
because you think about it, if you go to the doctor and they charge $150 for a visit, you're gonna pay it because you need to see them for whatever it is.
Mm.
Now, will they all the time do anything for you? No.
No, sometimes they make you worse.
Sometimes they make you worse. Sometimes they do nothing at all.
Mm. Yeah.
So you have to consider that. So the question that I ask is, if you could change anything in the world, what would that be and why?
I would. It's something to do with equality, and it's something to do with rewriting history. I would um, elevate witches instead of murder them. all those thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago. I would I would rewrite the Garden of Eden story
And tell the truth.
and tell the truth. Because basically that is even if people aren't religious, it's a story that is underneath everything in terms of what how men and women are seen in cultures. Uh, Women are seen as the slaves to men, the bad ones, who the sinners, and we carry that wound, that burden, even if we're not necessarily religious. It's just a big part of our culture underlying, and so yeah, we've got this inequality. So
And why?
yeah,
Why is it always violence perpetuated against the woman?
yeah, I know it's horrible.
Hmm.
And yeah, so what I would want to do would be to elevate women to an equal status, properly equal status, and yeah, properly punish violence in really appropriate ways. I'm not going to say anything more about that, but you probably know what I mean.
But I was going to say, those that know, know.
Yes. Yeah.
That's where we're going to go with that.
Yeah. But
All
yeah,
right.
equality, rewrite history. So the witch burning times didn't happen, but the religious, monotheist religions did not take over, and we carried on living in, you know, in our equal societies.
I love that. I love
Mm.
that. I think that I agree with that. I'll get on board with that.
Yeah, cool.
And that's a different answer than I've gotten all the other 200 interviews that I've done.
Cool.
So amazing, so amazing. So, share with the people where the best place to connect with you is, and then we'll roll on.
Okay. Right. My Facebook is Lilith Wildwood. And come and connect with me there. And you'll find links to how to find out about the business course, how to find out about my witches training course, um, and also my website is lilithwildwood.co.uk. Lilith is Lilith, lilithwildwood.co.uk. So that's my website where you'll find all the information. But yeah, the business course, it's not actually on my website because I kind of market it slightly differently, but it's all on Facebook. And there's a new group called Create and Grow Your Witchy Business. So people are welcome to join that as well on Facebook. And I give daily tips on things that they can do to help elevate themselves.
That is so powerful, and I'm filled with so much gratitude.
And thanks for being interested to talk to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. You're amazing.
Mm.
I saw you on Facebook and I was like, let me reach out
Yeah. Cool.
because she is so cool. And
Mhm.
you had a post that was so amazing, and I don't remember what that post was about, but it was
Yeah.
so good that it made me like it was a long one too.
Trying
Typically,
to
I
remember
don't
which one.
read the long ones unless
Yeah.
it looks interesting or
Was
something.
it the one, The Universe Doesn't Love You?
Maybe that might have been
Anyway, oh yeah, there's a
so
few.
good. I was like, man, this is powerful. And I think it was that one. And I looked up and I said, I got to reach out to her. Like, I need to have her on the show. I was like, she's
Yeah.
amazing. But I
Thank
didn't
you.
realize how amazing you were. And I'm so excited that we have had this chance to talk. It's just been amazing.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
You're so welcome. So, for everyone that's watching, we appreciate you watching or listening, wherever you're listening. I would love it if you would like, share, and subscribe wherever you are watching or listening. Make sure that you follow Miss Lilith. All of her details will be in the show notes of wherever you are watching or listening to this. but we do appreciate you. And I thank you for joining us on Straight Outta Savannah.